This podcast is brought to you by brwdigital.com, a video production company based in Santa Fe, servicing the needs of businesses and content creators worldwide. brwdigital.com. It's a program for filmmakers by filmmakers. It's the Breaking Indie Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Breaking Indie Podcast, a podcast about filmmaking made by filmmakers for filmmakers about all things film. Today we are joined by my friend Samir Asthana. We're coming to you live, or not live, from my cozy little home in East Hollywood. And Brenden is joining us from Florida. You're in Florida?
Yeah, you can see by the lovely wall behind me, there's palm trees, the weather is nice, and I'm stuck inside a hotel room.
There's a hurricane. Oh, the winds are strong. A reporter in the field. So yeah, we'll be cutting back and forth between Brendan's
run to be here via Zoom, so apologies for the audio. But hey, big unsolicited shout out to Adobe Podcast for cleaning up our audio. Also, you guys could give us money if you'd like. That'd be great.
Yeah, we just gave you free advertising, so there's an exchange that's going to be happening here.
All right, well, let's shift gears to the real important stuff, guys. Let's dig in our heels.
The man of the hour.
Lend an ear to the real man who's here that we're all ready just to learn graciously from. Samir, what is your title?
What's my title?
Yeah, how do we introduce you? What's your title?
I specifically oversee our OTT department and am the head of OTT. And so,
What is OTT?
What is it? Yeah, can you explain OTT?
yeah, another great question. So OTT, it technically stands for over the top, it's an acronym that doesn't really mean anything to anyone. It's like a very there's a lot of acronyms like that.
Yeah, that's the only industry.
Yeah, but it's basically a catch-all. It's basically a catch-all term for anything related to streaming. So Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Roku, Pluto TV, that all is kind of bundled together under OTT.
Just a free.
Did they let you pick your title? Like when you got this job, where you're like, I am the director of Over the Top.
No.
Was there like a Sylvester Stallone cardboard cutout with the arm wrestling involved?
That'd be. Oh, I wish, man. I mean, I would prefer to be director of OTT because, on the business side of the industry, it's a term that everybody's pretty familiar with, and it's kind of the hot button topic that is on everyone's minds. But was unfortunately not able to win that battle.
So OTT. Does that refer to any and all streaming, like all of the streaming sites?
Yeah.
But we've talked about this before, but don't you guys kind of primarily focus on some of the free TV as well?
Yeah,
like
so
Pluto
we absolutely. Right. We do primarily focus on AVOD and FAST. Those are our two verticals. Two more fun acronyms.
Great. We're going to have a lot of acronyms. We'll have things at the bottom that explain all. Nah.
Yeah. Well, no, but so real quick, the first vertical that we operate in is AVOD. That stands for Advertising Video on Demand. It's very similar to SVOD services. That's Subscription Video on Demand. Those are your Netflixes and Hulus, except there's no monthly subscription that you pay.
Right. Advertising.
Exactly. It's totally free, and then there are ads that are placed in the content.
Right.
And so we have about a little over 60 different TV series on AVOD that I oversee production and distribution on. And then the second vertical that we operate in is called FAST. That stands for Free Ad-Supported Television. This is Pluto TV. Tubi has a few FAST channels as well. It's very similar to what traditional cable used to be, where you have a collection of channels that are playing 24/7 programming, and you can scroll through and see what channels are there, and then if there's something that's interesting, you tune in, and whatever's playing, that's what you're watching. So we have 2 FAST channels that we own and operate, and we're actually going to be bringing a third to market in the next 2 months, which I wish I could talk to you more about it right now.
Right.
It's not there quite yet, but we're bringing some new channels to market, which I'm pretty excited about.
So, many questions, but specifically one last acronym question.
Yeah.
Can you explain the difference between AVOD and FAST?
Yeah, so they're pretty similar. AVOD is like, it's the key difference between the two is AVOD is it's very similar to like a Netflix or Hulu experience where you can choose whatever series you're watching.
Okay, so
And you'll choose whatever episode you're watching. Versus FAST is just it's basically a TV channel that's online.
Yeah, so kind of like almost like live programming, which exactly it's whatever you're into. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And do you just and you guys and it's your studio, like, does it do any form of development or is it purely distribution for you guys?
So we kind of cover everything, but our studio is pretty unique in that we don't work with the traditional. I mean, we do have an arm of our business that works with more traditional film and TV players, but what I do and largely the creators I work with are actually digital creators. It's YouTube influencers primarily, and what we do is we actually take their YouTube content and then repackage it into a TV series with seasons and episodes, and then pitch it to different platforms. And so it's really unique. And to be clear, we're not just taking any YouTube content with like someone like, you know, in their bedroom with a webcam doing it or something. We're pretty specific about the series that we work with, and really focus on getting TV level quality creators that have a lot of production value and that are, you know, producing some pretty incredible content.
So yeah, we really got to step up this production quality.
Yeah.
Once we have more than 7 subscribers,
Still young with this production, okay, guys? Like, better. I promise.
So what's interesting about that, you guys are taking and packaging digital content. So as myself, as Brenden, as other people that might be watching this or listening to this, specifically as, like you were saying, a film and TV player, somebody who is trying to, you know, get off the ground as a content creator through kind of the more like traditional film mediums. I think it's just very interesting.
Yeah.
This idea of, you know, because we always talk about the democratization of content. You can put it on YouTube, you can put it on TikTok, you can put it on Instagram. But there's an interesting, I would say, dichotomy between, especially with new filmmakers, right? We have the studio system that's still churning out, you know, blockbuster films and shows on Netflix and things like that.
Right.
But as a new creator, as somebody who is just coming into this industry and wants to make, you know, your own independent content for usually low, you know, shoestring budget.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting time.
Yeah.
To potentially go away from the traditional, you know, take it to a festival, try to sell it to, you know, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, which is still, you know, that's still obviously narrative creators. We want that. But there's this kind of new avenue, I think, that's emerging through, like you're saying, FAST and AVOD, to be, you know, things like that are not only taking content but developing it. And I think really that's what I am super curious about, and to have you on today. And I think it's kind of a good, you know, introductory conversation to breaking indie. And we're talking about breaking into the industry. So let's just get into it. I mean, like,
Let's start there for a second, actually, because Samir, one of the questions we like to ask our guests is what got you into the industry, or how did you kind of come into the industry? And that could be, you know, how did you, you know, get a job, or it could be, you know, what pulled you into the industry. We're just kind of curious, you know, how did you kind of find your breaking in?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let me tell you all my backstory. It's pretty interesting. It's a lot of fun. I've lived a few different lives in the entertainment industry. But to start, you know, I went to USC, University of Southern California, for my undergrad, and there I did a dual degree with business and theater. I actually started as an actor, and you know, was really into that.
Don't we all?
Yeah. I very quickly realized that, I took some acting classes from some phenomenal teachers, learned a lot, but realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do long term. I knew that I still wanted to be involved in entertainment, and then I discovered writing. I took a playwriting class, fell in love with it, wrote a few stage plays that the university actually produced, which was super exciting. And so
You get a direct. Did you get to like be a part of the actual like making of the process?
So I wrote the script. My professor is actually the one who directed it and assembled the actors, and I'm really glad that worked out that way, because I will say, like, I had a particular vision in mind, as I think a lot of us do, and like when I was writing it, and this is something we'll talk more about as we get into this conversation. But when my professor kind of made it her own. She did it in a way that I had never really thought to do it, and it was 10 times better than what I was originally imagining. And so, this is a very collaborative industry. It's a very collaborative art form that we are in. So I realized that, working with other artists and giving other artists power is helpful. And I also felt that writing was really what I wanted to do. So after graduating, I actually was very, very lucky. I got a job at a company called Mar Vista Entertainment. They do both production and distribution for a lot of TV movie of the weeks that go to Lifetime, the Hallmark Channel, Sci-Fi Channel, that sort of thing.
I'm familiar with Mar Vista, yeah.
Yeah. If you've ever seen, we were very famous for, the Christmas rom-coms and female-driven thrillers and that sort of thing, which, it's...
I acted in a Lifetime movie once. I'm kind of wondering, I think it might have been for Mar Vista. I'm not totally sure.
There's a good chance it was, because Mar Vista, the year that I was working there, I think literally about 50% of the original Lifetime movies and Hallmark movies were coming from Mar Vista and being produced by Mar Vista.
They really nailed that to a clockwork. Like they really dialed that whole kind of production method in pretty well, haven't they?
Yeah. No, and that's also when I saw, and we're gonna talk about this quite a bit too. The business side can be very, very cost conscious and are very focused on the bottom line. And I will say Mar Vista did do a very good job of still delivering content at a quality level that their audiences were looking for and appreciated, but doing it at budget and doing it in a way that made actual business sense.
So then did you go directly from there to the company? And it's Studio 7, right? What?
Studio 71.
71.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm bad with numbers.
Yeah. So
There is really where I got to see like the filmmaking process and how a project goes from like a concept to actually being distributed to TV and to streaming platforms and that sort of thing. I did two different things. One was I worked on the distribution side and would actually acquire filmmakers' projects to distribute to different platforms. But on the other hand, I also worked with screenwriters and directors, giving them notes on each draft of the script as early as the treatment stage, and then each cut of the film from the director's cut to the final cut. And so that was a great intro to, production experience and all that. After a year, I decided to leave because I really wanted to work on stuff that wasn't Lifetime and Hallmark movies. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good content, but like I wanted to do something a bit different. And so I left and worked on my own writing for a few months. And at that time, this is a very common issue that a lot of people who are trying to break into the industry run into. I was like, oh, this is gonna, like, I have like 4 months to work on whatever screenplays I want to. That'll be enough time to like write my masterpiece and then go pitch it out and sell it. That's not how the industry works. And so I was doing it for about 6 months and then ran out of money. And then I got a job at Variety. I actually got a job at Variety Business Intelligence, which is the data analytics arm of Variety. And there it's now called Luminate. But there I was exposed to the entire industry, and I got to see how really big industry players actually function. And that's when I understood, for me, I'm all about elevating underserved voices. And so what I realized is, if I kept trying to do it as a writer, it was going to be very, very difficult as compared to on the business side. I could actually be a decision maker in what projects are being greenlit or not. And so I'm going to kind of summarize the rest of this, but I ended up going back to business school, to USC for business school, got my MBA. It took me a bit of work and time to get to where I am now, but my journey now is more so focused on doing kind of a mix of both business work and creative work. And I feel like I have a very good understanding, not just of, the filmmaking side and the struggles and joys of being a filmmaker, but also a very strong business sense of what actually works and what doesn't work in this industry.
Well, that's why I keep them around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you could give us some insight into that. I mean, what I want to know is one, like how people it's a two-part question, but how in one way how people submit to you guys or how you guys find the collaborators, but also what you're looking for. Like, what kind of content at this moment that, what is it? Are there certain boxes that you guys have to check or certain things that you're just like, what's good is good. And if I know that it's good, that's what we want. Like, is there a process?
Yeah, well, so our process is, again, like largely because of the work that we're doing, our process is pretty unique because we're working with some pretty unique creators who are making content in a non-traditional format. But I will say, one thing that's kind of unique about working here as compared to any other type of distributor is we really work with any genre of content. A lot of distributors that you see will focus on a specific thing, like Marvista does, the rom-coms and the female-driven thrillers. For us, it's really any type of digitally native content that originates from YouTube that is TV level quality. And so we have a little over 60 series, which is quite a few different TV series that span every genre, food, comedy, automotive. We actually even have a few podcasts that we're working with that we are putting up as series. And so, the things we look for and the things that really capture our attention is when a creator has a pretty big online presence, specifically on YouTube for us, but even if it's on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, if they have a really big social presence, that's when we take a look at their content and prospect them. And there's a few qualities that we look for when we're deciding to work with a creator on OTT. Is their content long enough to make like a traditional 22-minute or 44-minute episode, which translates to a commercial half hour or commercial hour? How frequently are they posting content? Are they only posting once a month, or are they posting every day, or once a week, and those kinds of things. And the last thing, and this is a really important thing in the industry that I think a lot of filmmakers who are trying to break in really get tripped up on. It's called tonnage. The more amount of content that you have, the easier it is to actually get a platform to pick it up and put it up for audiences. And that's because the more content there is, the more content audiences are able to engage with, the longer watch times you get. And generally, that's what leads to more successful TV series.
And sorry, I couldn't really hear what you said. What is the term called?
Tonnage, right?
Tonnage.
Yeah.
Tonnage.
Tons of content.
Yeah.
Oh man, all these words are just amazing.
Yeah. And I will say, one of my, it used to be a much, literally 2 months ago, it was a much bigger frustration of mine, but we call it content now. We don't call them movies or TV shows, right?
Right.
And it is so painful to me to say that.
Yeah, I mean, as a creator, it's extremely painful as well.
And I know we've had conversations about this quite a bit of oh man, the death of the art form, but It's in really seeing like in reflecting on it the past 2 months, it's not really that the art form is dying. It's just transforming into something.
It's a rebirth.
Yeah, it's something.
The phoenix of art will rise from the ashes of TikTok content. I don't know.
Well, maybe not TikTok. Not for much longer.
Okay, so this really, from the tonnage,
Yes.
quantity breeds quality, as they say. But so this is really what I want to get into today. So, Studio 71, you guys are working, like you said, with digital first creators like YouTube, and you're saying it spans all these things, automotive, food, but really what you guys are doing is you're taking and packaging content creators into these different video on demand platforms. And so that to me is the big question, and as I, again, we are learning at the same time in terms of like how to break in, right? What does breaking in this day and age really mean? And so also as someone who squirms a little bit at the idea of content, right? I'm, at an age and a generation where I'm still very much attached to this idea of film and TV, narrative content. I just said content, but this idea that, okay, how do you get noticed in the industry, right? And there's a couple ways, right? Number one is you're just on set all the time. You're a PA, you work up through that. You meet a lot of people that way, you network. I still think that's a really, really, just being on set and meeting people and just learning on set is probably just a really valuable way.
Incredibly valuable.
But then it's like, okay, you've learned on set. You have people that you can make a film with, a short film with. And then you get your money together, right? You make that, and then you take that to film festivals, right? You're not necessarily, you're on a shoestring budget. You're not going to Netflix. You're not knocking on Netflix's door or emailing them and being like, hey, I have this really amazing, short film that I made, or even feature necessarily. It really is the model of like going to film festival, right? And then getting some buzz there, using that as leverage.
Right.
But the question being, is that still, obviously that's still a way in.
Absolutely.
But now there's this really interesting thing I'm witnessing, which is this idea of digital content creation.
Yeah.
And specifically not just with food shows and automotive, but with narrative content.
Yeah.
With skit shows, with even like episodic like the idea of a YouTube web series, but like there's this one, I think it's called Greg in LA on Instagram, and it's like an Instagram reel. I think it's like 1 to 2 minutes long. That is, each one is progressing a story.
Yeah.
So actually, what's interesting is as you're on Instagram, you have to scroll down to then go through it in linear fashion as you get to the most recent ones.
Yeah.
But it's a narrative show that is being told in these 1 and 2 minute reels through Instagram. Another one is This Is a Bad Idea. These two guys, super funny content in its narrative. You know what I mean? It's not Almost Friday. There's a bunch of guys that are
Tales of a
not
Faded
just guys.
Glass. There's a bunch.
Tales of a Faded Glass. Well, so that's what I'm saying. That's
That little project.
That's the difference, though, is what I'm saying.
For
Is
the
like,
viewer, that's our project that we're doing. Our narrative series. I also like series. I like the term web series personally.
I don't like it either. Yeah.
I like short form series. But I don't. Yeah, I always cringe. I'm like, oh, we're doing a web series.
Yeah, it just there's things that come up when you think of the word web series. You're like, oh, it's just poorly produced and it's not funny.
And I will say, like, especially someone being in my position, the gap between what people think of when they think web series versus like old school traditional like film and TV series, that gap is closing quite a bit.
Exactly, and that's what I'm curious about because.
Sorry, real quick though, Cole. I think there's one other thing. So you're talking about like going to film festivals and stuff like that, but I think the thing that Samir mentioned that is important to also mention is leveraging your fan following, leveraging. Okay, you've got 1 million followers, and it's like, an audience. Yeah, leveraging your audience is also another, I think, way to stand out with the project.
Yeah. And so I'll speak to that a little bit. What I'll say is, first, absolutely the old kind of quote unquote traditional way of breaking into the industry, which is what you were talking about, like pulling financing together to make a short or a feature, take it to a film festival, make connections there, and then get them to finance, your next project.
Right.
That still exists.
Sure. Of course.
It is incredibly difficult to do, and it is no longer the easiest avenue, in my opinion, professional opinion, to getting
The doors feel quite more closed than they have been in the past.
Yeah.
And I think it is really because like you go to a film festival, it's based in the, I guess you could say, product or the film or the episodic, what you've created is what you're selling to a degree. You're going to the film festival, and whether you're accepted to the film festival, whether you win an award or not, it's all very based in kind of the meritocracy of the content. What have you created that exists, from beginning to end, right?
Yeah.
And then let's say you get some buzz with that. Okay, you take it to a streaming service or something. What you're doing is you're giving them, here's what I made.
Right.
Either let's take this concept and you guys give us more money and we'll make it better, or take exactly what we've created as a package and just put it on your platform. So what you're really doing is you're leading with the content, and then that content is either marketed or what have you to an audience, then rises to that, watches it, etc. Versus a content creator and leveraging an audience, was what we're talking about, is more based in the creator of the content rather than the content itself. Obviously, both have to happen, but an audience is built off of, I like these creators.
Well, and the challenge, I feel like the challenge with that too, then, is it becomes all of the impetus on the creator to be able to fund the project in advance. Like, you already have to be able to be making the content to that point to have an audience, so that is limiting in some ways if you're not just a YouTuber talking directly to camera. If you're trying to make narrative content, that's expensive. And
Exactly.
That kind of additional challenge, right?
Yeah. So a few things to touch on here. First of all, to address your point, Brenden, on it's on the creator to kind of finance the content themselves. That's true for if you're taking more of a digital first approach. And then trying to build an audience there, and then get financing for bigger features or a TV series that way. To build up an online audience, you do need to actually start creating content that you put on platforms like Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, etc. The difference is the amount of financing you need to make a short, even just a single short, is comparable to the amount of financing you would need to make a few episodes of, let's say Instagram Reels or something like that. And the monetization works differently too. So with more traditional film and TV, you have to put it up. It has to find its audience. It generally takes a bit of time before you really start to see revenue.
Or it's just purchased by a streaming service, perhaps.
They're starting to move.
You could just put it on Amazon, right? You could just make something. You could put it on Amazon.
Yeah.
You don't need. They're not paying for it.
Right.
You're just and getting an audience. That way.
And that takes time to it takes a while for that to work. With social platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, etc., typically you see the most amount of viewership within the first few days of a post going live because of the way their algorithms work. And so if you're actually making quality content and something that's very strong, you're going to start seeing revenue a lot faster than traditional distribution on these OTT platforms. Or even apart from OTT, like
YouTube.
traditional film and TV distribution. And so it's actually easier to start building a business as a digital first kind of approach as compared to the more traditional sense, because from the traditional sense there's so much more risk that these distributors, platforms, buyers are taking when they're taking your content.
Right. Is it gonna, how much money are they spending? I mean, it's just ROI, right? So it's like, how much money are they spending? How much money, let's say you made, like, for example, we have this project that, we created on a pretty shoestring budget.
Yeah.
It's episodic. Ideally what we would do is, and it's been to many a film festival, ideally what we would do is we would pitch this content to a Netflix, a Hulu, whatever, to then have them use what we've shot sort of as a proof of concept, right? And then, potentially, give us the, money to make what would be a Netflix level, production quality, whatever that means. Right.
Well, and to your point, actually, because you're touching on something very interesting, is like, how are they making those decisions? They love metrics, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about metrics, like with traditional distribution, historically the way it's worked is, let's say you're a distributor, you're looking for horror content, you see a horror feature at a film festival that you think could be a good acquisition. How do you even go about forecasting what the revenue might be from that? What companies and distributors platforms have traditionally done is it's called comps, which is comparables. They say, okay, well, this film is similar to these 2-3 other horror movies that we've worked on or that we've seen in the market, and based on their performance, like, we can get a rough gauge of how this is gonna do. That is a very ephemeral science. It's very inaccurate. Yeah. And so the difference when you're taking a digital first approach is, when you're pitching, and often when creatives and people who are breaking in are pitching their project, in their pitch deck they will have a slide that says, here are some projects that we're comparable to, or give
projection,
like that.
What's the audience?
Exactly. The difference with a digital first approach is the metrics you share are your own metrics.
Yeah, they're already there.
Yeah, so it's like, hey,
point to them directly.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, we have this series. This series got this much viewership on this platform and that platform. And so the amount of risk that platforms are taking to pick that content up is minimized quite a bit compared to more traditional content. And that's why I would say I would actually encourage every filmmaker to really heavily consider a digital first approach even before thinking about the traditional method.
That's a hot take.
Yeah.
We're getting into some hot takes here. It's because that is not, I mean, at least again, in people in our age group, millennial generation, the traditional way that it's worked is you go to film festivals.
Yeah.
You make short films or something that's, low, maybe $1,000, couple $1,000 if you can scrape it together at your whatever job, to produce a short, 5 to 10 minute short film, and then you push that out to as many film festivals as possible. Yeah. You go to the film festivals, you meet other filmmakers. That, of course, that networking happens, and so that networking happens. But also, you're hoping that a distributor is there, and goes, oh, okay, yeah, or, and it's a short film, so in that sense, it's like people are investing in you, right? So an agent is like, happens to be there, is like, wow, this is really great, I want to represent you. I can then introduce you to some of these other people, show your past work, and potentially either get you jobs or get your foot in the door, right? So that's the kind of traditional model. And you're saying, I'm saying at least take a look at digital first.
That's what I would encourage everyone to do. In my professional opinion, it is 10 times easier to take the digital first approach as compared to other approaches. And the reason I say that is because when you make a short, you're raising financing to produce a short, there isn't a single professional filmmaker I know who is thinking they are going to make a positive return on the short itself.
Of course.
It is used as a investment vehicle for the feature or as or for the TV series or something, right? When you take a digital first approach, that short could actually get you a pretty significant return on investment. And so if you put enough that you can make more of them, and if you put more of them out and you're actually building something successful that audiences are engaging with, the story becomes very, very different, because in what you're talking about with the traditional way, there's so many other players you have to convince that might ask you to do this or that.
Right.
When you're doing it yourself, like, yeah, you have to finance it yourself or find some way to get financing. You're going to have to do that for a short anyways. But when you're doing the digital first approach, you're actually creating a lot of revenue, and you actually ultimately may not even need to go find financing for your feature. You can raise enough financing from your digital first approach to then do the feature yourself, and then you can make it however you want, and then you can do whatever project you want.
That's what we want. I mean,
Yeah.
we want it. The studio having creative control is never the best thing.
Yeah.
So film festivals are out. You heard it here first. We're literally going to one in a week. No, of course not. I mean, film festivals have value. And
I think absolutely they have value, but it's hard to get into the larger festivals. Like you're not really going to get into Sundance unless you have an A-list celebrity, and you because those studios are already buying those slots. And at these smaller festivals, it's great, but you don't also then really get the kind of people there to purchase. You don't have an HBO person rep at a smaller festival looking to acquire the content. But again, there's a lot of value in it. Absolutely. But it's just, I feel like that is an old model. So to hear you speak about this, I think that is super insightful for anyone who's listening to really take note of what he just said, and to keep that in mind when you are looking for financing for your short films, when you are trying to leverage what you're doing to say, well, there is an opportunity to make money. It's just not that we're going to use this to build a feature. That could be, your end result is a short film that, you do a series of those or build a following. That's really incredible.
Yeah. And the other thing I will mention of if you're actually trying to build a successful creative production house, like you're trying to be a successful filmmaker that is doing this full time and making a good living doing this full time. One massive benefit to this digital first model is that you're building a following, you're doing all this stuff. You can earn enough revenue from that to finance your own content and make your own feature. Once you've made that feature, you already have multiple verticals that you have a social following on that you can then use to advertise your own project.
Right.
And so
huge.
it's you're like the benefit of taking like a grassroots ground up approach is that by the time you get to financing your own feature from the revenue you've made from your digital verticals, those digital verticals can be used to elevate that feature. And that's a really big thing.
So out of curiosity, if let's say you are one of these people who are making ad revenue have a successful following or on social and stuff, what are they gaining by bringing their project or their IP to, for example, a Studio 71? Like, is it just more exposure, or what's
Yeah. So
That's a good question.
That's a really good question. So the reason they come to us is because, like most of the creators that we work with, they are able to get successful enough just from, doing their own thing that they really only focus on that, and they don't have appetite, the bandwidth. There's a number of reasons why they don't want to build out their own team and have their own team like do all of this stuff themselves, because it takes a lot of manpower. And generally, when we are working with creators, the majority of the creators we're working with are I would say probably like 70 to 80% of them are still totally independent individual content creators, right?
They can focus on creating the content, and you guys can focus on the distribution.
Exactly. And generally the way that we have worked with creators is we say, hey, you keep doing what you're doing. You actually don't have to change a single thing about how you are making content. And we will do all of the work to, like, any additional editing work to make it into like a traditional 22-minute commercial half hour. Any like intros, mid-rolls, outros that need to be added. Any they're called CTAs, calls to actions, like and subscribe to my channel and things like that. We cut all of those out. We do all of that work for you, so you can just be focused on continuing to make content and unlock these pretty significant additional revenue streams without taking up more of your bandwidth. The difference is, if you're trying to be like a real successful filmmaker that is building a production house that can make multiple projects, you're going to be building a team already. It benefits you to build all of that out yourselves, because that gives you more control as well on how you want to approach it. And if ultimately your goal is to do film and TV and you're just using digital as kind of a means to an end, I'm candidly all for that. Like I'm kind of in, I totally get that, and I love that. But it still makes more sense for you to own those verticals yourselves rather than outsource it to a third party, like a Studio 71. A Studio 71 or like a company like ours is really good if you don't have the bandwidth for it, or you just really want to be focused on what you are doing well,
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting though, because you guys are packaging and essentially selling the content that lives, for free with ads on Instagram, YouTube. What like if you're a gamer or something, right? You're doing gaming content and you have your YouTube channel. It's doing quite well.
Yeah.
You guys are essentially taking that content and packaging it and then handing it over to like a Tubi or a Pluto TV or like some of these other platforms that, sure, I guess to a degree the creator could assemble their own team or get some other level of representative and then also do the exact same thing and package it and go to Pluto. Mm-hmm. But again, and this is kind of speaking again to any type of studio system or streaming studio system, they really do have people that they work with, that they approach for content. And so, that's opening doors that, yes, you're making however much money you're making from YouTube revenue. Well, now you can have revenue from Tubi and Pluto and all these other sources that you can't just log on to Pluto and, submit your content. You need to go through a separate channel for them to then purchase it and, probably give you a contract and things like that.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, no, totally. And those relationships are still going to be very valuable. And if you don't already have those relationships as a creator, that's why working with a distributor like a Studio 71 or anyone else could be so helpful. But that said, if you do achieve a good degree of success from your from the digital first approach, and even before you are really pushing the gas on trying to finance a film, you can actually get conversations started with these platforms and with these companies. Because if it's a significant enough brand, even if it's something that, execs there have just heard of or have seen pop up on their own feeds, which happens so frequently.
Happen quite often.
Yeah. They would it's interesting enough to take a call, and for so many filmmakers really like that one call is like that foot in the door is what you need to get some really productive, amazing conversations going.
Right.
And so, you know, it's a different type of gatekeeper is the way I would phrase it.
Yeah.
You're not trying to impress an agent or trying to impress like a distributor that also finances productions, like does some co-productions. It's now you are focusing on building an audience online and like really building a brand online. But when you do that and other people's like execs see it and it's something you can send to them and share with them, they will generally at least take a phone call to see what the opportunity is.
And in that sense, the gatekeeper, really, the first gatekeeper is the online audience. I mean, it's like they are the ones who are determining whether or not, you know, that gate is opening and you are getting likes and subscribers and all this kinds of stuff.
I'm about to give you another really hot take that's I think a lot of people are going to disagree with.
Here we go.
Because it's there's this art in my mind, a largely artificial divide between traditional film and TV content and digital content. I mean, we're starting to see those sides merge together quite a bit now. But there's a lot of people who are like, oh, but I'm a filmmaker. I'm a film and TV guy. I'm not going to make digital content. And like that's below me or whatever, right?
Sure.
Or like I don't know how to make it or something like that. Here's the thing. If you can't make a successful digital series or like a digital brand, why would that be successful as a film or TV show? Like it's
well, I mean, some people would say my first response is, you know, the algorithm, you know, things like that, where you have the best content ever, and just like having the best film and the studios won't take it. It isn't necessarily seen. I mean, obviously you have to spend a little bit of money to get it out there on some of these platforms, but which you do with a film anyway. You got to pay for media.
And also Netflix also has an algorithm. Hulu also has an algorithm.
Right. Sure.
So, you know, like if like there's a lot of reason you can say, oh yeah, this didn't work because of X, Y, and Z. And true, audiences are looking for different things in different platforms, and you need to be mindful of that. But if you're not able to do that work and understand what the audience you're targeting is looking for and engaging with them effectively, you're not going to be able to do that with a film or TV show either. Like it's at the end of the day, being a creator and being a successful creator is about understanding people, understanding audiences, what they are watching and why they are watching it, and finding effective ways to engage with them. And if you're not able to do that with digital and like can't figure that out, then you're not going to be able to do it with film and TV. It's a different thing. It's
hot take.
Very
hot take.
It's a different. Go ahead.
I think also some of the roadblocks that filmmakers will put in their way is like, well, I see it this way and I can't really do that without the money. Like, I want to make Captain Underpants with John C. Reilly as an adult, but I can't do that unless I got a studio backing me and I got the intellectual rights to Captain Underpants. And it's like, well, you're not ever going to do that movie if you haven't already made your own projects, done the things. Like, you can't live in this like, well, I'm waiting for my magnus opus and I'm going to put everything aside. Like, you're not going to get to your magnus opus unless...
Which is, you heard it here first, it is John Cena as an adult.
John C. Reilly.
I like John Cena, actually. Can we do also John Cena as Captain Underpants?
I would pay a lot of money to see both of those.
Two versions. John Cena is the villain. John C. Reilly is the hero. That's
No. It's going to be an anthology with different Captain Underpants every single episode and/or film.
It's like
live action.
Different ones take up the mantle. The mantle, the underpants.
Yes.
I love that.
Well, Samir, I do want to thank you, man. You've been so generous with your time. Unless there's, any last questions or anything we want to share, I just want to be mindful of your time as well. And
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's
Learned so much today.
Yeah, no, it was great being here. I love speaking with both of you as always. And a little quick story for those of you who are watching who don't know. When I went and got my business degree, it happened right around the time of the pandemic, and I actually was living with this gentleman sitting next to me right here.
Right here. This was his bed.
This
is comparable to curled up. Yeah.
Living on an air mattress in the backyard shed, and so
It's not a shed. Okay, it's carpeted. He wasn't in a metal shed in the back.
Get a couple bicycles out of the way, and
Yeah, exactly.
But it's even being on the business side, like there's ups and downs to careers, and so you guys helped me out so much when both of you helped me out so much when I was on the down, and I feel like I am coming up quite a bit now, and so I'm really happy to be able to at least a little bit repay it.
yeah, but don't forget the small people.
Yeah, well, this is this right here is a really good example of networking, but not in the false networky sense. You know what I mean? It really is establishing relationships, keeping those friendships alive, and then really, how do you work together? How do you help each other? You're sitting here because not just because I let you crash in my garage, but we've had other moments before that. But it really is just fostering those
We're definitely going to be
relationships.
pitching Tales of a Faded West to you, man. We're going to be bringing our our short series to you real soon. I promise.
I'm looking forward to it.
No, actually, Samir, one thing I got to note too for everybody out there, just to kick back a little bit of appreciation here. During that time, during COVID, you found really ingenious ways. You were very clever about how to also, like, right out of college, make money. Like, there was a game that you were playing where you were like playing this game for like 6 months, but you were starting to make money through the game. And I was like, what is he doing, man? But like, you had this figured out. And it was a really creative, clever thing that I think that also just speaks to your
NFTs,
creativity.
bro.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and it's true. I did make quite a bit of money from that, actually. To be clear, for anybody watching at home, I really got into like Web3 and NFTs when I was living with these,
Which we know, unfortunately, how that has gone. And
yeah, I mean, I was able, while I was unemployed and still looking for a job to get me back into the entertainment industry post MBA. It was enough to pay a little bit of rent, pay for food, pay for all these things. Dude, if I start talking about this, it's gonna be a whole nother.
It's we'll keep it short. We'll wrap things out, guys.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks. Don't go to film festivals and invest in NFT. We can leave at you with
Great advice.
Great advice. Yeah, but no, honestly, the digital first strategy, the fact that gives filmmakers the opportunity to also keep like creative control, perhaps create a product that's like sustainable, based off ad revenue and all that. So really, honestly, super great insights, man. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man, really appreciate having you here. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. There's some really amazing gems in this episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can use you as an audience and leverage you to get Studio 71 to pick us up. That's what you are. Leverage.
We're here to leverage that power. So please do follow, tell your friends.
Follow for follow.
Like it on
follow for follow.
Share it on your Facebook, what have you. But more importantly, thank you for your time, guys. Thank you for lending your eyes, your ears, your minds, whatever else your time and your likes and your subscribes or whatever else.
I think it's time to
wrap
to wrap it up. Yeah. And cut.
Do we both say it? We can all three say it, guys. We're still
well. Okay. All right. 3. You're gonna say and cut too. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And cut.
What? It's a program for filmmakers by filmmakers. It's the Breaking Indie Podcast.